Morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wednesday, November 28th, 2018 meeting of the Lake Havasu City Planning and Zoning Commission. If you'd please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Jim Harris.
Here.
Lucas Dale.
Here.
Michael Gordon.
Here.
Doug Hardy. Susanna Ballard.
Here.
Susanna Ballard?
No.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
She's here.
she's here.
John Kendig.
Here.
Dan McGowan.
I'm sorry, here.
Chad Nelson.
Here.
Donald Bergen.
Here.
Danny White.
Okay, we have one vacancy. Would Ms. Ballard please come up and join us in Mr. Hardy's seat? Okay, minutes to the last meeting. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the last set of minutes? Commissioners? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So motioned.
Have a second? Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Still, a second by Mr. Nelson. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and place our votes. And Susanna, did you sign in? I did. Okay.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Correspondence and announcements.
Mr. Chairman, we have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Luke. Moving right along, let me first say that this is a public hearing and there is a structured order to this proceeding. City staff will present each item. There will be time for the commission to ask questions of the staff, and then the applicant will have the opportunity to present their case to the commission. That being done, we will then open the proceeding to the public for their questions and input. I would ask that anyone of the public that wishes to speak limit their trips to the podium and microphone to one only. Keep all comments to less than 5 minutes and to stay on point and not discuss subject matter that is not pertinent to the decision being considered here today. After public testimony is taken, I will then close the public hearing and bring the motion back to the table for the city staff's recommendation, discussion amongst the commission, and eventually a motion to approve or disapprove. The first item on today's agenda is item number ID 18-1834, which is a request to amend the Parking in Common Master Plan for Tract 2257, Block 10, by removing lots 5 and 6 to allow for display and sales of vehicles in the C-SGD Commercial Southgate District. Mr. Morris, your presentation.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. The property that's the subject of this request is on the south side on Maricopa Avenue, between Oro Grande and Arapahoe Drive.
Where are you?
It's currently part of the Parking in Common for Tract 2257. It's shown here in this aerial. So give you bearing Oro Grande and Highway 95 here, the Bash's Shopping Center, and then south down Maricopa Avenue, in the middle of the block is this property. The Dairy Queen, for reference, is up here at 3195 Maricopa. This is the approved parking plan for Tract 2257. The subject lots are here, again, highlighted with the buildable area here, and then the shared parking area down in this area. The current development has a drive-through coffee shop that had been operating there for a number of years. They had a previously approved Parking in Common Master Plan amendment to allow that drive-through and the aisles to go through that Parking in Common area. When that use went away, that approved Parking in Common went away with it. One of the conditions of approval for that original drive-through was If a new use comes in, they have to get their own parking in common amendment if they're asking to change it. And that's what this user is asking to do. This is their proposed development plan for the property. You'll notice it looks very similar to what's existing already. They have an existing building in the back, where the drive-through coffee stand was here, and then the parking in common area starts where the parking spaces are shown in this area. They're asking, since they're asking to remove themselves from the parking in common, they have to provide all their required parking on site. That particular use requires 5 customer parking spaces, which they're showing right here, including the ADA space. So there's ADA and 4 other spaces for a total of 5. And then they have a number of spaces here dedicated for display of their vehicle sales. And then utilizing the existing traffic in driveways, ingress, egress for their customers. And with that, ends the staff presentation. Back to the commission with any questions. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions of staff by commissioners? Any at all? Mr. Still.
Hi, Luke. In terms of the ingress and egress on that site, on the other sides where they could drive through without coming into the main ingress and egress, is there an elevation change now that disallows that?
Well, when these were developed, the property to the left of here is obviously a vacant lot and it's fenced off. So the property that's developed to the right-hand side, 3193, there is an existing parking lot that was developed well before this parking in common plan was adopted. Where along that shared property line, there is, as I recall, a wrought iron fence that blocks the access. There's a little bit of a grade change, a foot or two, not a whole lot. But what happened is, as these properties were developed, because this one was so old, it didn't develop per the approved parking in common plan. If this property redeveloped in the future, the one next door here, then we would ask them to match up that plan as much as possible to ensure that the parking in common is going to work.
So just kind of leading into the background on this, if I recall, the corners of some of these Southgate districts, we've allowed them to abandon the common and parking altogether in some cases, but we haven't done that yet on interior parcels. And they're not asking for that here. They're just asking for display out front, which is a slight variance from what is allowed in Southgate, correct?
That's correct.
And is the background correct on that? We have allowed a few that are on corners to totally get rid of the common parking?
I'll go to the parking in common plan here. On this particular block, on Oro Grande Boulevard, where the car wash is there on the corner, that lot and the one directly behind it, abutting it, those are not part of the parking in common master plan. They weren't shown as parking in common on that tract map. And they're part of a different tract number, but the other tract is these 5 lots on the end here. But so that end lot does not have any parking in common shown on the tract map. On the other end, along Arapahoe Drive, that from Arapahoe Drive all the way up Maricopa is all part of the parking in common plan. And the only one that's been removed or modified, any of these properties, is the Dairy Queen. The Dairy Queen property was modified to allow a drive-through similar to the coffee shop drive-through. So in that particular block, all the rest, none of the others have asked for exceptions from the parking in common plan.
But it doesn't appear like the parking in common plan is functioning exactly as intended anymore anyway, in terms of being able to go from site to site without getting back on the road.
I would suggest in this case, the way this block has developed, because it's been piecemeal and there's not been a number of lots either developed all at once that are abutting each other, you're correct. It's piecemeal at best as far as the parking working out.
But Luke, they're not requesting to abandon the parking in common, and I don't believe the Dairy Queen abandoned the parking in common either, did they?
That's correct. They're
It's
still
just a
showing the parking in
modification.
common. They're asking for a modification to allow the drive-through. That's what the Dairy Queen asked for. In this case, they're asking to be removed from the parking in common to allow vehicles displayed out there in the parking in common area, as well as their customer parking. So what they're saying in this case is that we want to be removed from the parking in common. We'll provide all our own parking. We want to use that parking in common area for vehicle sales.
So this is the first request for abandonment of the parking in common in this block.
Yeah, that's another way you can put it. Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Gordon.
Chairman, being through these lots a couple of times before, I know it's the first in the middle, but given the way it's developed, the way it's been piecemealed, and the way those function, and knowing that each of those do have an elevation step in there, I mean, I don't see how this would ever function as a parking in common area. You would have to have a complete redevelopment of all the parking lots as a joint action in order for that to even function. So it is a removal in the middle, but personally, I don't have a problem with it because I don't see how it's ever going to function the way it was originally intended to.
If I may, the reason that the parking in common was brought forth in this originally was because these lots are so tiny and it's very difficult to obtain the desired amount of parking for specific uses. And the parking in common proposal, or whatever, the plat that we have here today, was to help those particular properties to be able to have additional parking available to them in order to allow additional uses. Am I correct, Luke?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So the parking in common is a good thing, but in this particular case, I don't see a problem with it.
And
Mr.
you're
Gordon.
you're right. I agree with what you're saying. I know on this block, I don't think we've removed any, but if you go down another block, I know we have, and in the past we've tried to pair up when one gets removed that, you know, someone else is removing, trying to keep chunks that are parking in common and those that aren't. But there are definitely other car sales and other things that have removed parking in common and are going this direction. And I don't, we've gone down that path on this whole Southgate thing, and we've talked about it in the past, and I don't know where it stops, to be honest.
I've been on the
with you.
commission long enough to go full circle from putting it in place to breaking it up. But the standalone parking does restrict tremendously the usage of those properties when it comes to parking requirements. Mr. Still, did you have something else?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other discussion? Is the applicant present? Would you like to come forward and make a presentation? Please state your name for the record. You don't have to make a presentation, but if you'd like to. All right. We're going to pass then. Okay, this is a public hearing. I will open it up to the public. If there's anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on this item, either pro or con, please come to the microphone. I do not see anybody. So hearing none, we'll close the public testimony portion, the hearing, and bring it back to the table for staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Staff finds that the proposed amendment has a minimal impact on the overall development of the adopted parking and common plan for Block 10, Track 2257. Therefore, based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends that Land Use Action 18-1834 be approved, amending the parking and common master plan for Track 2257, Block 10 by removing lots 5 and 6 to allow for vehicle display and sales.
Does the applicant understand and agree with the recommendation? Okay. All right, we are at the table for discussion and or a motion amongst commissioners. Anybody? Mr. Gordon.
I'll make a motion. I move to approve an amendment to the parking and common master plan for Track 2257, Block 10, to remove lots 5 and 6 to allow for display and sales of vehicles in the C Southgate district.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Gordon. Do we have a second?
I'll second
I'll
that.
second the motion.
We have a second by Mr. Nelson. I believe he was first, to approve item number ID 18-1834 with staff's recommendations. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and take our vote. We have to go back. Come on. Push your button there.
Green one, right? No,
The middle one, the big one, in the middle. There you go.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, congratulations. Good luck. All right, the next item on today's agenda is ID 18-1844, an appeal of an approved lot line adjustment that adjusted a property line northwesterly approximately 29 feet, resulting in 3,899 square foot of additional property being added to Lot 1 of Tract 135C, Block 5 at 2015 Palmer Drive. Mr. Morris, your presentation.
Yes, Chairman and Commissioners, thank you. I'll give you an update to this case. The applicant of the original lot alteration has submitted a letter withdrawing the land use request. Staff has rescinded the approval of the lot alteration per the withdrawal request. Therefore, the appeal is moot and no action is required by the Commission at this time. Thank you.
Okay. So there is no item to discuss.
Correct.
That, I believe, is all that we have on our agenda today. So at this time, I'll go to the call to the public. If there's anybody in the public who wishes to address the commission on any item whatsoever, now is your chance. Nobody coming forward, so the next item would be future meetings. Mr.
Yes,
Morris.
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. The meeting scheduled for December 5th has been canceled. The next regular meeting will be December 19th.
Do we have items for the December 19th
Yes,
meeting?
we do.
Okay. All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.